to ask about. One is I had a quite surprising visitor in my backyard about 1:15 Saturday afternoon. I looked out and there was a coyote in my backyard. First time I had ever seen one, and first time I've ever seen one inside the city limits. And my daughter was in from Georgia visiting, and she said, "Oh, you need to call the non-emergency ECOM number." So I called that, and I was politely told, "Sorry, you'll have to call wildlife." She gave me the number, called wildlife. I get a nice recording saying, "Sorry, we're closed." And I knew animal control is closed on the weekend, so I was like, I don't have any police officers' phone numbers. I didn't even have your phone number, I don't think. I probably maybe do at the end of an email, but I really didn't think about it. So I just did what every other citizen in Troutman does, because they know Emily works for the town. She fields all of the questions, so I gave her a call. And she took it from there and handled it, because I did see Darren, because I went out and spoke to him. He said he went down and sat at the park, because it stayed running around in my neighbor's yard and our yard for quite a while, and it looked like it was going to come up toward Eastway, and my daughter stepped around the pool and it saw her, so it took off running toward the street behind us and then into the woods, and I was like, oh, it's heading toward the park. So that's why I was concerned and called Emily. And thank you for taking care of that.
Coyote patrol.
Yeah, so we'll add wildlife to your other duties. And I don't know if it's the same one, but as I was going to work the other day on Houston it ran, I mean, it was a full sprint across Houston over toward, I guess, more toward Lowe's. So I assume there's probably a few more in our community now.
Right.
If you've seen one.
Yeah.
Well,
exactly.
that's why I was wondering. I was like, it just didn't seem right. I thought, well, it's either hungry or it has lost its pack and is looking for them. I thought it was strange just to see one.
Yeah.
But I'm not a wildlife expert on coyotes, so I don't know.
They've been around for a while, but yeah.
And there's a few that hang out regularly over on Clonsville.
Yeah. I've actually seen them on Streamwood, but yeah.
But I do have a neighbor that has a fairly medium-sized dog that he keeps tied out, and it went in that dog's direction, but it didn't bother the dog at all. And I thought, well, that's a little strange. But somebody said it doesn't bother a larger dog, it's the smaller animals.
May be worth putting an alert in the newsletter or something saying, hey, you know, keep your small dogs on, just be aware, kind of thing. Yeah.
And the other thing is, I remembered today, sometimes I remember to set it on my phone to remind me, but today was the radio show day, and I found WSIC. It's not the easiest for me to find sometimes, because I think it's FM, but I know it's AM, and it's hard to find. But there wasn't any Troutman show today.
That's on me to take responsibility for that.
Okay.
We'll fix the problem, and we'll make sure that we have plenty of guests in the future. So I'll be getting a hold of you guys and scheduling some stuff out for some months in advance on that. So.
Okay. Thanks. I'm sure that's all this time.
Sally, I guess maybe I had a staring down contest with, I don't know, maybe the same one. Several Saturdays ago, I was out in the backyard working, and Rose hollered out, look up.
Mm-hmm.
And I dare say from here to Brian, there was one standing, staring at me.
Right.
And I stared at him back, and all I had was a rake in my hand.
Mm-hmm.
And it did not move. We sat there and stared at each other the longest time. I even yelled at it, acted like I was going to throw my rake at it, and it just stood there and looked at me. And I stood there, and after a while, it just kind of walked off in its own pace and crossed the creek and went up towards Alvarevis's, you know, up towards the park area, and I assumed over in those woods. I did not report it. Shame on me. I guess I should have now listening to this. I'm glad you brought it up, because next time I certainly will. But hearing about so many around, I guess I'm just, even though
Right.
I haven't had that happen before, I'm kinda numb to it, that, well, it's here, they're here, and, you know, what else, can you do except, you know, call, like you say, call animal services of some sort. But,
Call Emily.
there was, there was a time that I wondered if the thing wasn't rabid, because it was very close,
Mhm.
and it didn't appear to be scared of me at all, and they usually say, you know, they're scared of humans, but this thing just looked to me like, you know, you and I are about here.
Mhm.
And, for the longest time, and it just on its own walked off after a while, and, you know, thinking back now, you know, it's a situation where when you're out in your yard and all you've got's a rake in your hand, and that thing was rabid or something, but, it's a sobering thing to look up
Right.
and see a wild animal. But, they're around, and, as I say, it could be something different, but, they're definitely in Troutman, and I know this one is not scared of people.
Well, this one seemed to be, I mean, it just seemed very nervous.
Right,
And
right,
everything.
yeah.
But, where I keep my horses, I was told from the very beginning, well, we have coyotes, and I've never seen or heard one
Mhm. Yeah.
over there, but
Right.
I did Saturday.
Well, that was my first as well. Over in my area, neck of the woods, even though I'd heard reports in the general area.
Right.
But, like I say, middle of the afternoon, no concern of whatsoever.
Mhm.
Just- So anyhow, but, yeah.
We'll just make sure there's a kind of an alert out there, make sure citizens know to be on alert. Next item goes to our staff comments and business. So turn it over to Mr. Gruisbeck.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The first item under staff comments in business is with regards to the holiday event planning, and you have a memo from Emily Watson, our Parks and Recreation Director, in your packet. And Emily, would you like to talk about some of the ideas you have for the upcoming events?
So we have 3 remaining events for 2020 that I'm just seeking a little bit of direction on. Won't take much. They've all kind of, in some way, shape, or form, handled themselves. The tree lighting, we can make that as inclusive of staff and council as we want to, or it can be as simple as we want it to be. Maybe with some of the numbers going up, maybe we want to plan for that to be pretty simple. We're gathering volunteers and staff. We've put together our schedule for how we're going to start putting up the decorations this year. They're a lot more than they've been in years past. It's going to take us a few weeks, so we're going to start next week with putting up some of the, pulling together our items and putting up some of the less obvious decorations, like the lights that are going to be up in the branches. We're going to go ahead and string those. They're going to be hidden. You won't even know they're there, but so we're going to start on the 16th with putting up some of that stuff, and so by the first Thursday in December, we're going to be ready to light the town. So what I've put here in the first paragraph is that I would love to include you all and have a little Merry Christmas wish from all of you, and on the first Thursday when we light the town, virtually have a Merry Christmas wish from you all and Brian and staff, and that we can post that on our YouTube page and our Facebook page to wish the town a Merry Christmas as we're lighting the town, so that while we can't gather this year, that folks can gather around their computers and their phones and get their Christmas wish from you all as we light the town. But if that is a lot to try to coordinate as numbers are climbing and we just need to keep it simple, we can do that. And I can create a really nice Christmas video of, you know, a Christmas card or something. We just post that, Merry Christmas from the town of Troutman, and we light the town, and it's easy. And if we need to do that, we can do that. So just looking for a little bit of direction there. So
I like the idea of pre-recorded or some type
Yeah.
of wish. If we could do something like that and get people together to do that,
Okay.
that's your first idea.
So inclusive of you all, or do you feel okay, everybody get together to make a little video or something, or? Okay, all right, so then we'll plan to do that. So
And that would be something you would need to have that completed and ready to go by the 3rd.
within the next week or so, I need to get with all of you, put on your Christmas sweaters and sweater vests, and we'll come in here and, or maybe outside somewhere and just get a real short Merry Christmas from town council, and wishing you and your family, that kind of thing. Just very short and won't take 10 minutes. We'll just, with our nice new cameras and stuff, and we'll put that together, and then so we'll plan on that in the next week or so. We'll send out some times to choose from. Does that work? Okay. Christmas parade. We've got two options. The general way we've done the parade in the past is not, I don't feel comfortable suggesting that as an option. With the crowds gathering on the sides of the streets, and then the entries, the entrance gathering at the school, I don't think that that's a safe option at this time. So either the reverse parade that I mentioned here, the backwards parade, where the floats line up and the crowd ride by, as option one, or option two, like we said here, Santa ride through town and we take the parade to you rather than you coming to the parade. So those are the two options that I recommend. Now, option one, we only have 11 entries. So that's kind of a lame parade. And two of them.
How many did we have last year?
100,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a little bit lame. So two of the entries said if they are required to wear a mask, they're not going to be participating. And one of those had 50-some members in the group that were walking. It's a dance group. So it was the one that would be packing the most punch, that would be the most excitement in the 11 entries that we have. So if they pull out, then we've really got nothing. So if I were going to recommend one of the two, knowing what we know, I would recommend that we put Santa on the fire truck if they're able to do that, or Santa on a float, and we bring Santa to you. And we tell you when we're coming, and we post a map, and we say, if you'd like to see Santa, come out on your front yard, and it's better than nothing. We're able to deliver a little bit of Christmas cheer, and we pump up some Christmas music on the float, and we try, you know, or we can cancel altogether. So those are the options we have.
I think use the fire truck with Santa and go around through town, especially when you let them know when we're gonna be coming through. That way they can walk out in the yard, you don't have to worry about social distancing. And I know the town I used to be in, they did that every year. It's what they did, is they put Santa on the fire truck and they rode around and
Oh, really?
get in the yard. They always did it every year.
Were the kids excited to see
Yeah.
it, or, okay.
And it always went over real well. And they told them what time they were coming through and the route they were headed. And
Well, there you go.
And they would just be out in their yard, so it wasn't really, so it's not a social distancing, they just come outside, but I think he may be through candy out there.
Okay.
He's
And-
coming back to fire truck every year. And having the police with them, you know, they always, I know kids always like the fire truck.
Yeah, yeah. And Chief said we can work together with a route that she feels safe, recommending, and that kind of thing
And they
that
can
works
move
with
through pretty
traffic.
well, you know, get through all the different, even going out to out to Suttersville and Falls Cove, and they can hit, with that vehicle, they can do that.
Yeah, you can look at both options and, come with positives and negatives, but I think what you're suggesting, under the circumstances, is the best. It's an unfortunate situation we're making the best of, as we've all said, and I think, what you're suggesting with the Santa Claus fire truck around town, let people know in advance the routes and so forth, I think that's the best of the two options in my opinion.
Do you think the reason why there's been such a poor number of participants is because they were afraid to get things lined up and then it be canceled?
Potentially, yeah. And, everybody's probably waiting to see what the numbers were doing, and, probably a variety of reasons. And I think we're nervous too to sponsor and endorse an event with not knowing what numbers are doing. Do we want to assume the liability of that, or do we feel safe hosting that? And so I think on both ends, we got to decide what's the best option for us as a community, and what's the safest option for us. And I feel most comfortable suggesting that we take the parade out. So, but it's certainly up to you all.
Other feedback, family?
I think that the drive-by by Santa on a fire truck with a couple of police cars leading, or, first with the fire truck, would be a nice way to wish our citizens Merry Christmas. I saw that done back in, I guess it was late April, early May, for an event. There was a drive-by with fire trucks from Troutman and with Mooresville Police, and it was very well received by the people
No?
I think it's a great idea also. The only thing that I would definitely like to see is that we go into all our areas within the town of Troutman.
Yes.
I
You
think,
know, you know, major subdivisions that we have within our town.
we'll definitely be inclusive of everyone. I think, the other thing too is the level of planning the parade takes. I mean, it takes a large amount of planning. It's not just show up, you all know that. It's not just show up and get in line. And we would have to be planning now. We're actually late in planning, and not knowing what COVID can look like tomorrow. I think that's a lot of planning and a lot of time and energy and effort to go into an event that could fall apart, you know, as we know tomorrow. It can change at any minute. So knowing that we can put our efforts toward a plan that can stay solidified no matter what happens with this pandemic, I think that feels secure and comfortable. But we will definitely be inclusive of every neighborhood in Troutman.
Just got one question.
Sure.
Do you think that we maybe want to use when I say 2 dates, God
Yes.
forbid, say we're going to do it on that day and it's a monsoon, and then we could do it the next day or the following weekend.
Good point.
We even talked about maybe splitting it between the Saturday and the Sunday. So in case Santa gets tired on Saturday, maybe Santa can do Saturday and Sunday.
Great idea.
So we don't have the whole town to try to conquer them one day.
Believe it or
Give
not,
us a lot of options then.
Do what?
yeah,
Thanks for giving us a lot of options to at least consider.
believe it or not, Troutman's a relatively small town, but I think when you start driving around, you'll find out there's a lot to it, as you say.
Yeah.
Santa and the fire truck driver both may get a little tired, and splitting it up is certainly a feasible option, yes.
Yeah, and they may have a call. They may have a call they need to go to, so.
And that should be
Reach out to the fire
interesting.
department.
And if the fire department ran into challenges, we can put Santa on a float on the back of a town truck. So we have a backup in case we run into an issue with the fire department, so. Thank you for your feedback, and I'll be in touch with dates for video planning.
Just so that I'm clear, Emily, this is probably gonna be a multiple day kind of event on the parade, kind of going through the neighborhoods, probably not just a one day.
Probably the 3rd and the 4th, that Saturday that we plan to do the parade, and, excuse me, the 5th and the 6th.
Okay.
Probably that Saturday and Sunday is what we'll have to do, just because it's so much.
Okay.
Oh, and the fireworks. I forgot the fireworks. Do you want to talk to that?
Oh, no, go ahead and start.
Okay. So, in reaching out to Iredell County to ask for permission to use the fairgrounds for the citizens to park there, the request was that we ensure that they stay inside their vehicles, and that feels like a monster to try to enforce. We envisioned children trying to get out and sit on the hood or get in the bed of the truck, and of course, while we would want them to stay in their cars to ensure that it's a safe event, that would be a lot for a couple officers and a couple staff to try to enforce. So, don't feel that we can enforce that as a staff at this time.
And in speaking with the county manager, going back and forth with some emails with her, I'm believing that the county is maybe having some reluctance at this point in time in having mass events at the fairgrounds. Not so much that they won't do it, but they want to be doubly sure about how the town would be handling, particularly the crowds that would be associated with the event. And short of just saying no, there was, I think, some reservations to do it, which I can appreciate. And going back and forth with Emily, in those conversations, we feel like it's probably going to be too much of a risk and a challenge, and out of abundance of caution, we'd probably recommend pushing that one back as well. So.
I just was listening to the latest today, and the numbers keep, all I'm talking about, one that keep rising. They had one lady physician that's part of the national medical leadership on this issue and this disease, and but she's saying that it's we're at the beginning of the worst part. We're not going down, we're on the rise. And I, based on what the impression I got from what she had to say was that by the end of December, we may be at the apex or certainly at near the top whether it's going up or going down. And I'm gonna have to agree that I think in the interest of safety, caution, and just plain good sense, we cancel it for this year. You know, at this point in time, I think people are not surprised, because they understand, hopefully they understand why we're having to do this, and again, but, it's either this or do some things we're seeing on the news reports, and they're ending up in clusters and so forth, where these events happen both here locally and statewide and nationally. And I don't want to be a part of that or be responsible for it, even in our small town. So that's my recommendation, is we just instruct Emily just to cancel for this year and look forward to 2021.
Is that a motion, sir?
That's a motion on my part.
I'll
Yes.
second.
All right, so we had discussed the fireworks for 2021. Sounds like there's a motion and a second to delay or to cancel it for this year. Any other question or comment?
Well, I think it's the most appropriate thing to do, and I don't think many people are even aware that we were gonna do one, because we've never done one New Year's Eve before, so I think that was just an idea we came up with, because we couldn't do it for Independence Day.
It was a great idea back in
In-
April.
Yeah.
Thinking we would be past this,
Right.
Right.
but we're not, so
Correct.
that's okay.
Well, I also understand that there will not be a New Year's festival downtown New York to watch the ball drop, so I guess everybody will still sit at home and watch it there, so I would agree. I think from a staff recommendation perspective, it sounds like the most prudent thing to do. Any other comment? All right, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Emily, you don't have to plan for the New Year's Day event. Sounds like a good idea though, but
Maybe next year.
maybe next year.
Thank you.
Anything else on the holiday planning?
No, sir.
Okay. Mr. Griesbeck?
Thanks again, Mr. Mayor. Trying to find a decent segue from what Emily had just reviewed with you and got your feedback on Parks and Rec, the conference that is virtually scheduled for, I believe, early December, that Emily and Paxton will be virtually attending. Had asked, as you'll recall, for a video message from one of the community leaders, and our Mayor Pro Tem so graciously volunteered to provide a message. And so if you're still willing and able to do that, I can take some video of you tonight before you take off.
We'll talk, you know, I got your points here, and I've got some, so we'll talk anyhow, yeah.
Okay.
We'll get it done.
Okay, great. Then kind of ease back into another discussion of COVID, unfortunately. Before we get into a discussion and an update on expenditures and revenues from Mr. Shealy, I did want to update the board on some work that staff-wise we've put into some best practices for handling diagnoses of COVID internally here in the building. Essentially what we did was take a look at information provided from the Center for Disease Control as well as the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. And we developed sort of a protocol for what is a symptom, how do we handle symptoms when an employee reports one, what we define as close contact, how and when folks get tested, and then how and when folks can come back. And so I think we had some more input this morning to the draft during our staff meeting, And I think we now are finally, after a few months, set with a plan of attack in the hopefully unlikely event that we don't get struck with the virus here within the office. So I guess with that too, we've been able to establish staff-driven and staff-led cleaning program, extra cleaning program for our office area and our main areas of the town hall. And we'll be doing extra cleaning, rotating the responsibilities for that cleaning, and just really making every kind of due diligence to ensure that we can be as safe as possible while we still work in here. I talked a little bit about that in my most recent weekly update. The other thing I guess that I'm concerned about is what kind of information we get from the state. Later this week, I would imagine, on whether or not we'll be seeing a phase 2.75 or even less than that. And so because of that, we've kind of been thinking ahead to what I'd call a worst case scenario if the governor does scale us back in terms of being able to keep an open presence to the office. How do we again handle that as staff, and how do we deal with it? And so we've done things like make sure our VPN can handle at-home work for non-essential employees, talking a little bit and revisiting the issue of what an essential employee, quote unquote, what an essential employee is, and just being kind of ready to go based on some of the information that we may or may not receive by the end of the week. So I will definitely keep you posted on what information we have, and certainly give you some reporting on what it is we're going to be able to do if and when that time comes. And I guess with that, you'll recall with regards to financial information that you had asked staff to keep a track on what sort of revenues and expenditures we were getting in the current year compared to year previous. And Steve, of course, has provided you with an update each month, I think for the past 3 or 4 months on current fiscal year anyway. And he included that information in your packet as well. And it seems to be trending in a similar direction. Steve, maybe you could comment more on that.
Well, I don't know if you've had a chance to look or not, but I am just adding the new month to it so you can see any trends. And our general fund revenues seem to be holding up. They're really actually ahead of last year's, particularly property tax and sales tax, doing quite well. Our water sewer billing, for some reason, is down more so than the general fund. Don't really have an answer for that unless it's because of restaurants doing less in-house business and more takeout. They are generally some of the higher users with all the dishwashing and so forth. But overall, we with the continuation of the building that's going on, I think we're getting things like availability fees and plan review fees. I mean, that's continued to come in quite steadily, permits and so forth. So I think we're in relatively good shape. I will point out, I had put on here when I did this late last week that we had some money pending from the COVID reimbursement. That did come in today, so basically we've got $22,670 left available to us of the federal money that was awarded to us.
Is that of the 66,000?
That's of the 66.
Okay.
Yeah, there's 22 left. We expended the rest.
Steve,
Yes.
when does that expire? December 31st?
December 31st, correct.
Okay.
Steve, I'm like you, I started off looking at your numbers over the weekend, I was looking at the packet, and I was tickled to death, and then I got down to the last, shall we say, paragraph there, shall we say, 100,000, 118, and then all of a sudden, September and October, you know, dropped, and I hear what you're saying. But it's also perhaps, you know, is it resulting in folks just, I mean, are delinquencies and.
Now, this is the actual billing, this is not,
Yeah, I know the
payments
actual
and so
billing, but I mean,
forth,
I'm
so-
saying, oh, the actual, well, I
Yeah,
thought
this-
this was the receipts.
No, this is the billing, what we send out.
What we billed out, it's not necessarily what we have received then, so, okay.
Correct.
All right, well, that,
And some of it may still be around water, and I know a lot of people seed their yards, and
Mhm.
I did in September, I used a sprinkler system, I think twice.
Mm.
Because the whole time we got enough rain that,
Right.
other than that first couple of days, and just because I did it,
Right.
the first couple of days after that, I haven't used it.
Yeah, we've had a very wet fall,
Already
so
had the
people have
whole
not
system
done.
shut down already from the winter.
but if you compare it to last year.
Last
it's
year,
no
I was,
difference.
when I seeded then, I was doing a lot of water.
Mhm.
So this is Mr. Harris's issue, I take it.
It's all his fault.
2 months of reductions here.
He
So-
said I should water that grass more.
That's right, that's right. Steve, I know this is a comparison from last year, but, I mean, have you looked back in the other years to see?
I really haven't, I can, try to do that, for the next month, maybe go back and pull a couple of more years in, just to see if it's, but then when you go too far back with the way the town is
Yes.
changing
Right.
anyway and growing so rapidly, you don't know
Yeah.
how valid that's gonna be
Yeah.
anyway.
Steve, can you give us an idea, and I'm not trying to invade anybody's privacy whatsoever, but can you give us an idea of, you know, billing is one thing.
Mhm.
You can bill all day long, but if you're not receiving anything,
Oh, our,
you're expending well. I'd like to get some sort of idea
Mhm.
of the income, shall we say.
well, I mean, I don't think our receivables are really going up. People are, the ones that were on payment plans are making those payments. Most of those are, if not totally paid off, very, very nearly so. So I don't think it's a lot outstanding that's, compared to normal.
That's what
People
I'm trying to do.
continue
You know,
basically.
If this is what we're billing, then so be it.
Yeah.
But, you know, are we seeing a drop in return
Collections.
or income, receivables, whatever term you want to use?
So we did it twice, once, for reduction in use, and the second time for reduction
In receivables.
in receivables. correct.
Exactly.
Well,
Yeah.
now that the moratorium on cutoffs has expired, I mean, they really have no basis to not pay. We are doing cutoffs and late fees and so forth, so, you know.
Are you seeing any kind of general pattern there, though, as of right now, as far as people paying the bill, so we say, whether it be
I'm saying
business or
they're
commercial
paying
or-
as well as they normally do.
Okay, so you're not seeing a drop in that respect, abnormally,
No, sir.
Mr. Grusback?
Thank you. The next item we have, staff comments and business, would be to discuss Wagner Street Town Building and mural. Let's handle the quicker one first. You'll recall a few months ago, staff brought you some ideas regarding a proposed mural on the side of the Wagner Street building that the town owns on the south-facing side. I think the staff preferred option at that point in time, after some conversation, and it sounds like one that the council was okay with as well, would be to use the newer the two oars logo or branding that the town had developed as part of its marketing program from a year or two ago. We would be looking at using mainly the oars themselves, or the image from the oars, and not necessarily any of the directional narrative or verbiage that I think maybe you saw on an earlier sign from Buzz Bazell and his company. In other words, it'll look a lot like Mr. Bryant's shirt, with the exception of Mr. Bryant being a part of it, not so much. So we wanted to check in with you on that one really quick to make sure that there weren't any, that there wasn't any confusion on what we were doing with that moving forward, and just make sure we're okay before we get too far into that project.
Well, now, you're gonna have oars, but is there any text to that, or are you just gonna have the oars?
Yeah, I think where we're at right at the moment is that we would look at just having the oars and not necessarily using the text, because we have the wayfinding signs within
Right.
feet of, that mural, so.
Or anything like, Enjoy Lake Norman naturally, some of the stuff we came up with a couple of years ago, but I just didn't know if there was gonna be any text or just, all illustrations.
Yeah, does it have the Enjoy Lake
It's
Norman
that
on the bottom of
exact,
the
it's that
strip?
exact mural we were gonna put on Miss Henline's building across the street. We're moving it over to our building. So it's that same mural that was eliminated from hers. We're just gonna move it. And it had some, directional verbiage that said, downtown restaurants ahead. We're just gonna cut that off, so.
But
It's a
it does
10
have
by,
doesn't it have Troutman and then
yeah,
Enjoy
look, do you
Lake?
want me to go grab it?
Yeah, that's
I believe it does say that.
It's on the background of the wood grain. of it.
Do we want to talk about the building right now, or just go into, or just kind of wait until?
Yeah,
we
let's
resolve
keep
this?
moving.
Keep it moving?
Yeah.
Okay. Back in October, you'll recall that I was asked to put together some recommendations on the town-owned building on Wagner Street. And so in your agenda briefing packet, I included a memo with some attachments regarding some ideas on that. The first page, we can probably move forward through the first page, which just, for my benefit as much as anything, I was trying to describe the context and the area of the building, and to kind of revisit what the history, how the history of the building was purchased, or how the town came to be in this situation with regards to the purchase of the building itself. What I didn't really explore on that first page, or the second page for that matter, would be the original intent that the town had in purchasing the building, which I believe, go ahead and throw something at me if I'm oversimplifying it, but I think what we were looking to do was to purchase a building and use it as a catalyst for the rest of that sort of downtown historic block. That if we could purchase the building and improve it in some way, and decide what we wanted to do with it as we were improving it, that would in and of itself become a catalyst and encourage other people in the area to improve properties and really kind of build up that little district there. Is that an accurate assessment? I kind of want to make sure I've got that straight in my mind before we get too far into it.
I think that's fairly accurate. I mean, the council who was part of that, I mean, literally, we had many of these charrettes, and it really was about trying to provide some type of improvement, downtown improvement, and hopefully spur some of that within our downtown.
Okay.
Brian, I see that in your report here that we purchased it in 2018 for $125,000. I know you're not a real estate agent, but in your opinion, what is that piece of real estate worth now?
I would really honestly be guessing if I told you. I wouldn't know what kind of price to put on that on the record. That's kind of what, I would want to, that's kind of the information and diligence I would want to get into if we did decide to market the property.
Well, either market the property or invest our money in that property, because
Right.
we certainly, if it's not worth what we purchased it for,
Yeah.
what do I want to throw another $100,000 in it?
Yeah, I think at this point in time, it would be a challenge to get what we put into it, out of it.
Right, as of right now,
As of
in the
right now.
condition it's in.
As of right now, as is, for sure. So that's why I kind of want to take us, I kind of want to take us through some ideas and see if I'm on the right track here, and then hopefully, if at the end of it, if you don't require any more information, if we can, kind of decide what kind of diligence we want to enter into, and what kind of direction we want to go at the end of this. Because certainly listing it for sale as is, that's just an option. I don't know that that's necessarily my preferred option at this point in time, but it is an option, and so that's why I put it in there.
So Brian, so that I'm clear, based on your assessment, the building is worth less than 125 right now.
I think it would be a challenge to get 125,000 out of the building as is right now, yes.
Just a thought that, and I agree with you on that statement. But the building is generating revenue and has been generating revenue since we bought it. So it's
Right.
125,000 minus,
Minus,
whatever revenue is brought in
$13,000 or $14,000 at this point. So,
to date.
yeah,
And has that been spent on the outside, or is that still in
That's-
escrow somewhere?
that's what we're using to actually make some of the tuck and brick improvements that
Good.
that we were doing, or we had a consultant or contractor do over the weekend.
Well, if I may address concerns, what we paid for it 2 years ago and it's not even worth that now. This is one of those things that you kind of go into knowing that it's going to be a long-term journey. When I say long-term, I don't mean forever. But it's going to be a journey of where we're trying to revitalize downtown. And we bought a building with that intent. Either do it ourselves or do it through grants or do it with a public-private and turn it into revenue, tax revenue income if the town doesn't use it for itself in some sort of expansion of town hall perhaps. The goal is to enhance, to beautify, if you will, or make it look better, that area of town, which I think anyone would agree could use it. And so, right now, it is a speculative type thing, but it's part of economic development. That's what we've got, the economic development accounts and funds set up in budget to take care of. And I think, with the right leadership from a professional, some sort of an urban developer or a community development urban developer, somebody that knows where the money is as far as grants, or knows about the rules and where people are, that you could do a public or private type of partnership. I think that's what we hopefully can latch on to, someone that can give us good guidance in that respect, unless we just happen to be lucky and latch on to a good situation without that. But if that's not the case, then something that can change that situation around in that area of town that will be the catalyst for surrounding properties to improve. So, yeah, right now, it seems like a bad deal, but I'm hoping in due time, it will pay for itself many times over, as far as not only itself, the building itself, being turned into something much better, but surrounding properties being upgraded.
I think those are excellent points, and the only thing I could add to that would be that in the projects that I've seen and been involved with like this, I don't think I've ever gone into it with the mindset that we were going to flip it and double our money. I mean, I just don't, or something along those lines. You're not necessarily making this an investment property. That's why I wanted to be clear at the very beginning of the conversation that your intent and our intent moving forward was to use this as a catalyst project for the area. And that's the primary goal, not necessarily to add to our general fund or our fund balance or anything of that nature. That we have to go into this with a realistic mindset that our goal is community development and not necessarily to make a financial gain with it.
Well, the mayor has a lot of experience in that in Salisbury, and it's been successful. And I'm looking to follow the lead on that and turn some of the properties that in this town, as has happened in Salisbury, obviously on a much smaller scale, but nonetheless in a positive, instead of a continually downward spiral like we were seeing Salisbury at one time, as I remember.
And my only issue, I don't, and maybe I'm totally off base, but I don't know that the properties in Troutman are decreasing. Values of property in Troutman are decreasing, and so if this property, and by the way, I've been, approached by folks for us to consider at least a similar option as kind of the repurpose of that property, at 125, there's probably some people in this town that will absolutely give us that for that property. So if we're way off base in what we paid, you know, I think we need to do some due diligence. If council's concern is we bought a bad deal, which I don't think that was the case. And so, based on my conversation with some of the realtors in the area, it's a great deal. We just need to figure out what we want to do with it. So.
Yeah, and I agree, and I didn't mean to, it's not like I regretted something we did 2 years ago, by no means. I think we made the decision that it's not gonna happen overnight, and that, through our leadership and transferring that property there, that will lead to others doing the same. And, these people that are approaching the mayor, if they can come in and, along with help from the town, regenerate that area, that will be great and will lead to many times return of the 125,000. So, yeah, I agree, and that was my point, is that we bought that property with the intent for the greater good of that area, the greater good of Troutman, if you will, downtown, which has been a topic of discussion for as long as I can remember, as far as going downhill, as far as looks, maybe not property values right now, but as far as looks, trying to refurbish it and bring it back up to where it's an attraction, as we've seen in some other communities in the state. So that's, you know, that's how I see this, and you know, based on what the mayor said, it seems like now's the time for us to be pursuing as best we can what we want to do with that property, and get some of these people that are interested involved, and see if we can do a public-private type of partnership with them, and get something done with that building. It's just that, you know, 2 years, I would like for us to make some sort of decision and get it out there, what we want to do. You know, whoever it's with, town, individuals, individual developers, speculative, whatever, just get something done to where we can see the end result of why we bought the property in the first place.
I guess the other thing that I didn't go into on this page, and I didn't want to complicate things too much, but in terms of assistance, and you said public-private, and I think that's a great thing to consider. If we were to head in the direction of a public-private partnership through, it could be through a strict sale, but more along the lines of an RFP, where we would take proposals on what we would want to see done with the property, and, you know, match that with what a private entity could do with it. What we can bring to the table as a public entity is assistance through a program called Building Reuse through the state. That, you know, we could use the assistance of our county EDC and the Small Town Main Street program to work through, and it's essentially a CDBG grant program to make improvements to the property. There would be some commitments involved, like a CDBG, but you know, and it would certainly take some effort on our part, or we would need to hire assistance to help manage the grant. However significant we decided to get into it. But you know, there's an option like that available. If we went strictly private and we took an approach where the town was going to use the property in and of itself, and I just kind of threw a couple options in here on that, but whatever department or departments end up in that scenario using the property, the other thing to consider as well would be some possible USDA funding, which would come in the form of loans or low interest loans. Again, some process and some diligence required with that option, but that's another thing I've worked with in the past as well. But that's more or less strictly for facilities. It's not necessarily for you know, for a private use per se. That would be that other program that I talked about. So there's some things available that, you know, and I haven't even gotten into you know, facade improvement and a facade program, and you know, Mayor Young can certainly talk about that from what they had done in Salisbury, and I've been around those programs in the past, and really it just takes one or two projects to really act as that catalyst. And so the other thing that we could offer, if it went in a direction in a private direction would be not only some building reuse, but also try to incorporate and utilize facade improvement funds, which would, you know, in some way, shape, or form, probably involve a match with the town as well as private money. And so there's some things that we haven't really gotten into yet that we could really start to use and do what it is that I think we set out to do when we bought that property a couple years ago.
That's
Right.
Go ahead, go ahead.
With these funds that would be available to us, okay, that we would keep, say, a planning department or a police department or whatnot there, and we fix it up, but we take either federal money or state money, or is there then a restriction on how long we have to keep that property?
Yes, usually there is.
Could you estimate about how long we're talking then?
Well, you have the debt to manage. I think that's the most important thing, that when you get into USDA funding, you're looking at, you know, just like with private loans, you're looking at 15 to 30-year period terms. I don't know that we would have to take out that much money if we're talking about just a rehab. And we may, at the end of the day, decide that USDA is not the route to go for, you know, what little it may cost, relatively speaking, to actually rehab it to a point where we could use it for our staff purchases. We may be looking at an installment purchase loan or something along those lines. With interest rates being what they are, if you can avoid going the federal route, sometimes that's the way to do it as well.
So
And
Steve,
is
so
this
Steve,
building?
Steve, how much do we own that building?
How much do we owe?
Yeah,
We paid cash for it.
that's what I thought. And so, to that point, there's roughly 13 still in the reserve account. We have a separate account for your information, Mr. Now, where we've been putting money away for economic development as well.
Right.
I don't know if Steve guesstimate on how much that is. I know it's somewhere in our packet.
Economic development, 310,000.
Would you say that louder, please?
310,000.
310?
Yeah, we moved, if you recall, the.
180.
Mhm.
Okay.
So technically, if we wanted to rehab that building today, we can rehab that building today
Okay.
for whatever use.
Yeah,
From a rehab
my-
perspective.
Just my questioning regarding that, if we take federal or state money, and 10 years from now, the council decides to want to sell it, and we can't because we took grants or whatnot, I want to make sure that we don't put ourselves in a position that we can't at that point sell. That was kind of my, I'm not against the project or rehab.
Right.
I just want to make sure that
Well,
the council 10 years from now,
Our challenge is to gain consensus on what we want to do with it.
That's right.
Then we can decide whether or not it's financially feasible and desirable to spend the money. We just say $27,000 on fireworks tonight. So, I mean, there's funds that could be put towards this project if we define the project.
That's right.
And we have not been able,
Right.
since 2018, to define the project.
And there's monies available for,
the pictures of the building look beautiful, if we rehab it to that. Beautiful, that I would be proud to take ownership on.
Some do, some aren't quite so good.
But it can, again, Brian, again, maybe you could help me out. Is this building structurally sound to really rehab, like we want to do with these pictures?
I mean, based on what I've seen on the inside and what I've seen on the outside, I haven't noticed any deficiencies, but I'm not a building inspector. You know, to move people in there, I mean, it's more a question of to move people in there. With the way it looks right now, it's nothing that we want to do.
No.
It's not in any kind of shape. I mean, breathing the air is difficult in that lower level, and it's not necessarily a mold situation. They had dogs and, you know, just years of use on that
It's
carpet.
unusable
Yeah.
in its current state.
Yeah, that's more the concern. I think I feel even better, the tuck work that we did on the bricks on the south-facing wall. We started from the standpoint of tucking the brick and grout that would be behind the proposed mural. But we also did additional work on that parapet area up near the top, which was crumbling pretty bad. And so I think we feel a lot better about the work that's been done. There's still more tucking that can be done on the side of that building, but in terms of what we need to do with the mural and keeping us out of harm's way, I think we're in good shape as far as the brick goes. Ceiling, leaking, things like that, I haven't had any reports, and the inspection and the inspection information that I was looking at over the course of doing some research on the property seemed to indicate that it was, at least as of a year and a half or 2 years ago, was in good shape.
Yeah, that was good. That was part of, the due diligence before we bought the property.
My eyewitness accounts seem to confirm what little I know about that sort of thing. So it just takes a lot of love at this point. It takes a lot of love in deciding what we want to do and how we want to love it.
Dedicated and has a plan.
So I'd like to offer this so that we can focus on this and hopefully move this forward. Because we've got inspections from when we had purchased the building and made our decision to make that purchase. If there are a couple of council members who are willing to work with me and maybe Brian to see, to bring back to council at our January meeting 3 options, and if those 3 options don't fly with the rest of the council, we'll go back to the drawing board and figure something else out. But to discuss 3 options, present that to the council at January meeting, if that's acceptable to council.
Yes.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Before we purchased that building, did, Mike Todd not get someone from, seems like it, I wanna say G.L. Wilson, someone from G.L. Wilson to look at that building and tell us it was structurally sound?
Yes, yeah,
My memory is that, yes, it is structurally sound.
Right.
It needs maintenance.
Right.
Right.
So
So,
he brought in some sort of inspection team, I can't remember the team, but, and of course, they said there's just so much we can tell, but what we're seeing, it appears to be structurally sound. And you're right, G.L. Wilson, I can't remember, but they certainly may have been a part of the inspection team as well.
right, I was thinking that, well, before we go with options, would it, not make somewhat sense, and please tell me if I'm off base, to get, a builder to come in there and give us an estimate to bring it up to code, to bring it up to date?
well, I think that should be part of that committee, is
Okay.
to come back with maybe answers to some of these questions in terms of the soundness. So for me, it is going back, looking at what we had done then, maybe even going back in there, making sure that, for example, the roof is good, I don't know, it's HVAC or whatever the needs would be to make sure that this building is, could be rehabbed, what have you, as options. So, again, bringing it up to code would be one of those, options, or part of the plan, if you will. So we could make that as a recommendation. What are the needs of the building?
Right. Could I also make a suggestion?
Mhm.
Why not use, we have a retired general contractor that's on our design review board.
Mhm.
And, he also draws up house plans and stuff, and he has really good, cause when my daughter was going to do some remodeling on her house, and he came up and he looked at it, and he made several suggestions that she went with, and it worked so much better. And not just get him to go and look at it and,
Well, we'll include him on the committee.
okay,
That's a
I'm
perfect.
sure he'll like me doing that.
I'll make sure I tell
We'll
him.
get you classed out, I think what you're talking about. I'll
Well,
get you.
yeah.
I'll make sure I tell him that.
Yeah, well,
He's
I'll
been
call him
voluntold.
first and say, Daryl, okay, this is what I want you to do.
But in the meantime, if we can decide and come to consensus on what we want to do with the building, then the question can be asked, is it suitable, can it be brought up to code, et cetera, and so on. But we still can't ask those questions until we know what we wanna do with the building.
Well, and so part of me says we have options here.
Yes, sir.
We just need to decide on if that's what we want. And so again, I think that's the question, but, and maybe that's, that's part of it. The building's totally sound. Do we want to continue to, own the building, not own the building? What does that look like, if we did? And so, again, I feel like we probably need to have this committee to maybe hash this out rather than kind of the larger group and present that to the council and say, these are your three options, keep it, sell it with these renovations, this is what it's gonna cost or not, so.
So now you're talking yourself, two council people,
The volunteer that,
volunteer, and Sally's gonna volunteer for.
yeah,
And anyone else that you would think would be wise to put on the committee?
probably be Brian on there too,
Brian,
yeah.
okay, all right.
Yeah.
So, okay. And would you wanna pick the two council people?
I've already got one volunteer, I just need one more volunteer.
Who's the one volunteer you got? Okay, I was gonna pick you, and I was gonna suggest you, so you beat me to the punch,
I'll volunteer.
Okay, I got two, all right. So me, Sally, and,
Do you know the retired contractor?
Very well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That would be a
Yeah.
plus.
so me, Sally, and George will bring something back in January, with a proposal, so we can focus on it and try to move it forward. All right.
Mayor, Paxton was telling me that, the brick mason told him earlier that we do have a leak we're having a roof problem, that's what's causing the brick to bulge.
Yeah, I do recall early on,
Okay,
looking at that issue, as one we need to figure out how to address.
okay.
So thank you for that.
Yeah.
It does look good, by the way. I mean, I even had citizens come by and say, hey, the brickwork update looks really good, as Ms. Williams mentioned, so.
Well, what's the problem with this, with
I think the way, I don't know if it's the way the sockets or the material on the top sits or something, but it's leaking down onto the brick or behind the brick, causing it, yeah,
There's a metal roof that has some
Yeah.
screws that are popping out a little bit.
yeah, causing it to deteriorate the mortar or whatever. It's not that it can't be repaired, or we just need to figure out, maybe this retired contractor can help, give us a estimate on that. Okay. Anything else on that, Brian?
No, not on this.
Okay.
Again, the attachments back there, you saw the elevations from the work that was done by UNC Charlotte, and then there's also a draft RFP from another community, Waxhaw, on a similar piece of property. So
Is there a general agreement to go ahead
Aye.
with the mural?
Were we good with this?
If and when the bricks are repaired to our satisfaction?
I think he's through, isn't he?
He finished today, yeah.
there's actually, well, he's coming back tomorrow and sawing off a few of the screws that are jutting out from the side of the brick, but then he's finished.
So we just signed without the downtown shops and that piece of it.
Yeah.
Okay, that was good with it.
so we'll have the welcome to Troutman and the, Lake Norman naturally
Right.
wording on there.
If you're good with that, or we can start from scratch. We were trying to do something that was non-controversial or non-offensive, and we thought if we're gonna have to be that generic, then let's do something that,
I think that was good.
yeah, that.
All right, we're good? I think we're good with that.
All set.
There's galvanized ductwork on the side of the building there.
Mhm.
Will this be to the left
To the
of
left.
that, so that ductwork remains in place?
Yep.
I think I don't know if you mentioned, the mailboxes are new. Some new mailboxes in there too.
Yep, there's a string of the mailboxes, they're fallen over and rusted and beat up and tore up. So Paxton's rebuilding the mailboxes that go there, and they're gonna look nice, so when you're looking at the mural, you don't see these rusted mailboxes.
Falling down
So it'll be a
mailbox.
nice set of mailboxes sitting in front of it, so that's gonna be rebuilt as well, so you'll see.
Are those mailboxes being used? I know
They
you-
are,
you
yeah,
built some.
we asked the same questions,
Yeah.
but they are. He stopped by the post office today and spoke with the mail carrier and confirmed the numbers and confirmed it was okay for us to pick them up and move them, and so, yeah, but they are being used, so, yeah.
Would it be better to have kind of the one mailbox that has each individual,
4 little keyholes
yeah?
like they're
Or
using in the new
do you have to
developments
go
now.
back with each individual mailbox?
I don't know, we just replaced the size and shape that were there with nice looking ones and put them on the nice wooden, but we can do that if you'd like us to.
When I spoke with the people at the post office today, that's, some of the residents had requested to have the mailboxes put on the back side of the building, and the 4 that are there, which I already finished repairing that today, that's the only ones that are being used on the side right there.
So you've already done the work on it? Okay.
We discovered on Friday, the back windows out of our building have been busted out, or maybe by the wind or the rain or the storm or something. So that's the next thing he needs to work on. There's some plastic and a sheet that we're covering it up, but he's gonna board that window next. So
Okay.
there's certainly some things that need to be brought up to code. They're not ADA compliant on the back. Some other things for the committee to consider.
Okay.
Let's talk about temporary goats. We have Jonathan here to discuss some proposed language and where we're at with that issue.
Thank you, Brian. At your October meeting, you may recall, you directed staff to explore, investigate the possibility of developing some draft wording for the temporary use of goats for goat grazing for invasive vegetation species. And I was able to identify, with the assistance of a colleague, what I thought was a pretty good ordinance that the city of Knoxville, Tennessee had passed a while back that enabled or provided guidelines and rules and regulations for the use of goats for grazing purposes. I took that ordinance that they had published and direct your attention to pages 28 and 29 of your agenda packet. I revised or modified it somewhat to perhaps begin to address our needs here in the town of Troutman. I will say that this is very preliminary and somewhat unpolished, and I didn't want to go too far with this until I did a number of different things. First and foremost, I wanted to provide this body an opportunity to give me some feedback on the work to date, and hopefully we'll have that opportunity to do that in a minute or two. I also wanted to talk to the person or the people in Knoxville who administer and enforce this ordinance, and I had an opportunity late last week to have a pretty productive conversation with that guy out there in Knoxville, and he was very, very helpful in giving me his perspective on how their ordinance works and some of the changes they're contemplating enacting in that ordinance in the months to come. Another thing I wanted to do is I wanted to actually talk to or communicate with one or two of the vendors who actually own these goats and provide that service. And I've reached out to, I think, 3 so far, and I'm still awaiting a call back from one of them because I'm really interested in knowing from the goat owner's perspective how these operations work, what the service is that they provide, how they provide it, and what the circumstances under which they offer and provide their service, so that we have that kind of information moving forward. Like I said, I've reached out to 3 different outfits that I found, 2 of which I found on the internet, and the third I actually got the name from Randy Farmer, and I reached out to them earlier as well. I'm waiting for a call back on that as well. As it stands right now, I think there are a number of different variables in here that can be changed or modified. Yeah, obviously, the cost of the permit. I think this was the $25 per permit was a number that was in there from Knoxville. I think other variables include the number of goats allowed per acre, the minimum number of acres that this grazing activity would be allowed to occur under, the number of consecutive days that the goats are allowed to graze in a particular location or particular property or address, the frequency with which the grazing can take place, and so on and so forth. A lot of open ends there, and what you see in here, a lot of these numbers are simply placeholders until we have a little bit better idea of where we want to go with this and what we want to accomplish and what we want to achieve. Sounds like I'm talking about that building, but I'm really not. But it's the same basic. It's the same basic issue with regard to what are we really trying to achieve or accomplish here, and once we have a little bit sharper idea of that, I think as staff person, I'll have a better idea on how to proceed and how to move forward. One thing that I have given a little more than a little thought to is, if we were to adopt something like this, where does it belong? And I think there was some discussion last month over, does it belong in the UDO or does it belong in the Code of Ordinances? After giving some thought to that and talking to the guy from Knoxville, I'm of the opinion currently, and my mind could change tomorrow, but right now, tonight, my opinion is it doesn't feel like it's something that belongs in the UDO, because the UDO pretty much governs issues of land use and land development, and having a goat eating kudzu on your back 40 doesn't feel like that. That really feels more like it belongs in the Code of Ordinances rather than in the UDO. So, and again, that's one person's opinion, and it could change, but it is what it is. One thing I'd like to bring up as well is, even though, and I'm going to sound like I'm being inconsistent in my argument here, but one possibility, because this was discussed very preliminarily at the October Planning and Zoning Board meeting. I did bring this up as a report out to the board on different issues and activities that I've been involved in. There's some interest among at least a couple of the Planning and Zoning Board members to learn more about this and weigh in on it. And what I'd like to do is suggest that I take the temperature of the Planning and Zoning Board on this at their meeting on next Monday evening, just in a real generic manner. Get their ideas and suggestions that I can package up and bring back to this body as well. So I've done a lot of the talking. I want to be quiet and let people answer or ask any questions that they might have on this.
Yeah, one I wanted to ask you was, As far as being in the UDO now, where the UDO says no livestock in town limits, if we put it in the code of ordinances, if it's allowed temporarily, whatever, for the goats, we would need to remove, what would we do with the UDO as far as, we would need to remove that statement because it would be kind of a someone reads our UDO and it says no livestock, well, they're gonna say, well, we don't allow goats on a temporary basis either. So we would need to handle that somehow, so that, again, you read the UDO, you get one impression, you look at the code of ordinance, so, whoa, wait a minute, those two conflict.
Yeah, I need to defer to our town attorney, but I think there need to be an effort to make sure that there's consistency there.
Or you could just have an exception clause that says, except as allowed in other parts of the code.
Okay. All right.
And I want to just comment that this is very comprehensive. Jonathan, you went to a lot of effort to put this together in a short period of time. You probably didn't have anything else to do though, so no problem.
Okay.
So thank you very much for, putting this together. There wasn't anything in here that I didn't see that I thought didn't belong. I do agree with you. I think it should be in the code of ordinances and not in the UDO. But I also concur that there needs to be some consistency and a bridge that gets us out of the UDO and over to the ordinances, a sentence, an asterisk, a statement. I want to make sure my math is right. First page, paragraph F on rate limit, you're calling for 10,000 square feet per goat, so that'd be 4 goats per acre, and you said you would round down, so if a person owns 15,000 square feet, they still can only have 1 goat.
Given these numbers. And
Using
again,
this
remember, I
number.
talked about, the variables. I think there's a lot of variability in here, and that would be one of those things. One of the things that I learned when I talked to the guy from Knoxville, and I'm going to refer to my notes here real quick, because I'm probably going to get this wrong if I refer to my memory, but it had to do with the consumption rates of, okay, here it is. He told me they worked with the University of Tennessee, the veterinary program there at the university, because what they wanted to do is they wanted to find out the consumption rates per goat. And what they have is 1 goat per 2,500 square feet, which seems to me like you could have just a yard full of goats if you're not careful. What he didn't get into
But only for a week.
Well, yeah, the period of time, it's
Cut your lawn with
2,500
3
square
lawnmowers
feet.
faster than you can with wood.
And I do think that they have a 7-day limit, so, you can do the math. Well, if it's 14 days, then, maybe it's 1 goat per 5,000 square feet.
The vast majority of homeowners inside Troutman town limits are on a half acre or less. So it'd be hard for them to, it wouldn't be hard for them, I mean, they'd be just limited to 1 goat and maybe 2.
And I think it gets back to, the question of the issue of what do we want to achieve by this? Do we want to have, everybody who has a 1/4 acre lot eligible to have a goat for a week a year or not?
I think that we're, again, a commendable job that you've done here pulling all this together. How many folks in town want to rent goats? And I've not seen but 1 request in the 5 years that I've been here. Have you seen requests?
No, but once they know, I know several
They
people
may
that have
do it.
kudzu in their backyard, that this would be a good,
It's an emerging technology.
right.
Emerging.
Thanks for that expertise.
See?
Well, and along that was another concern was that you had, and that was something that I was hoping the P&Z could come back with recommendations on. I at that meeting that night, Randy asked my opinion, I said, guys, go out and do the research and come back with something to advise us on. And of course, that included you as well. Because I don't know, a goat at 10,000 feet may not make a difference. You may have this huge and you got a goat eating, and after 7 days, you may not be able to tell that the goat's even been there.
Or it
You
may
may
take
need
them
2
a
or 3
month,
goats
right,
to
exactly.
10,000. These are things I wanna know. I don't know, I don't know how much a goat can eat in a 7-day period.
Yeah.
I wanna know, I guess I'll need to know if I'm gonna be intelligent in how we handle this,
Yeah.
but, whether it's only one person or 100 citizens that are interested in this in the coming days, years, whatever, if we pass this, I just wanna make sure we do it right. And we don't have to come back and redo it, do it right first time, and forget it.
Randy Farmer did say that goats are herd animals.
Excuse me?
They're herd animals and they don't like being alone.
No, that's
So-
true, that's true. And one of the guys on the planning zone had mentioned that, and maybe it's like Erica's request, it's a smaller lot, it's on cuts are running through the backyard. It's using that for a test to limit how many days, and how many times a year, maybe 3 times a year, I don't know, it's like.
Yeah,
Right.
the
You talk about, we use that one as one is set to limit. We decide to go to the ordinance and use that piece of property there.
But our quarter-acre lots with houses
you
on
got that
them,
small
you're
one.
really only talking a few thousand square feet. That needs to be clear, not to total 10, if it's a developed lot versus an undeveloped property.
Right.
So, you're right, there's more research.
Yeah, more research, I mean, there's no use to pass this if it's, somebody can only have one goat, and they put it there for a week, and they can, they spent the money, they can hardly tell it's even there.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty soon word's gonna get around, and people are gonna disregard the ordinance.
Jonathan, in your conversations with individuals that do this for a living, 2 you said you talked with, and you're waiting to speak
I
with the
reached
third
out to
one.
3 different,
Yeah, I'd be interested to know what they recommend to a property owner,
right.
not what Nashville has in their ordinance. What is that individual business selling to their customer? I mean, I know what the end result they're looking for, but what is he or she recommending that they do to remediate the problem as soon as, and quickly and efficiently?
Right, absolutely, because keeping in mind, of course, that anyone in local government who is administering these ordinances, they don't live with the goats 24/7 like the actual vendors do.
Right.
They're gonna have a better understanding of the habits of their creatures, because they tend them, year round. So they're gonna be that much closer to that than you or I or the people in Nashville or anybody else like that. So, point well taken. And that's really one of the basic questions I wanted to ask these outfits.
So Jonathan, a couple of things so we can kind of keep this moving. I know we want to talk about goats longer, but just so that I'm clear, can you bring back to the council, unless somebody has an argument that it should be in the UDO, a ordinance that speaks to this, and checking with the planning and zoning for their input before you draft that ordinance?
Yep.
And any other research, but bring us back an ordinance. Part of my question also is Nashville in the ordinance or is it in their UDO?
It's in their code of ordinances. It's
Okay.
not in their UDO.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So can you bring back a draft ordinance for council to consider?
Will do.
Thank you.
And just one comment, Paul's correct, as far as, somebody having the goat for 7 days and you can't tell. They don't eat, they're not constant eaters. They graze just sort of like cows and then they lay down. They don't eat constantly like a horse does. So you might wanna look in the more length of time.
The length of time, yeah, I've got that.
Because kudzu doesn't lay down and quit growing. It continues to grow during growing season, very quickly and rapidly.
It's an interesting point, and Ms. Williams, I think you brought up the issue of coyotes at the beginning of the meeting. I found out from Nashville, and they've got, I guess, a coyote population within the city limits there. Goats are, or coyotes are goat predators. Coyotes will actually attack goats, and they've got a little bit of a problem
Oh, yeah.
there with coyotes actually attacking the goat population. So I'm not sure they're ready to tell me how they're dealing with that, but it did come up in conversation. I thought that was very interesting.
Dogs will attack them too.
Yeah, yeah,
That's what happened to mine.
yeah.
Don't open that Pandora's window
Yeah.
just yet. All right, yeah. Next item.
I think we were going to discuss the school resource officer issue.
That's fine.
It's yours.
Mr. Now.
Well, I'll lead off. Our agreement with the school board, the town's agreement with the school board was entered into in late winter of 2019. So it's been into effect for 2 years. It's, according to the document, it runs from year to year unless, for some reason, one party, whether it's the town or whether it's the school board or whoever, asks that it be renegotiated, reconsidered, or changed in some way. That agreement that's in effect hasn't been reviewed for 2 years, 24 months, and it's the first agreement that doesn't contain complete information that had been in previous memorandums of understanding. So the recommendation is that we ask our town manager to reach out to the school board or to the school superintendent and ask that we be allowed that we sit down with them, that we do not want it to just immediately roll over into an agreement for a third year, that we sit down with them as soon as possible, preferably before the first of the year, and review it as it currently stands and request changes that may be appropriate to make to it to make it more meaningful to the town of Troutman.
So any comments on the recommendation to have Mr. Gruesbeck reach out to the school board and superintendent to discuss the MOU?
So if council,
before it renews, I guess.
so if council is in agreement, recommend the town manager as soon as possible formally notify the Iredell County School Superintendent and School Board by letter that Troutman request a meeting to discuss revising and refreshing the expiring memorandum of understanding prior to that date. So we move on into the new year with that in the pickup. Now, our SRO program is funded through the end of the 2020-21 school year. So there's time, but if there's any budgetary issues that need to be addressed, then there's an opportunity to do that before the budget planning season starts.
And that begins with the winter retreat, so it's, we're not looking at late March or April and May when budgets are really technically down to where we some road serious discussion. It's got to start now.
Well, and the school board had already met and decided on their budget prior to our February retreat. So they're ahead of us by some period of time, whether it's weeks or a month or so.
We need to the county very quickly and get here from. So
yes.
Again, my point being that this needs to take place. We're in the middle of November. You got 45 days, we'll say approximately, to get this done. So it cannot wait. It needs to be started quickly. We tried this last year and the time got away from us, and we had COVID. So now here's our chance. We still got COVID, but here's our chance to get the ball rolling again. And I agree with you 100% that this needs to be done ASAP. And any further follow-up discussions after the initial reach out.
Everybody good? I think it requires a vote, but can you make that happen?
Yes.
Okay. Good deal. Good? Okay.
Tonight, yes.
All right. Move on to the next item.
So I thi-
That would be you. The recommendation that I'd like to make is,
We'll cover that when he starts to go through it.
I'm sorry?
On the national diabetes,
Yes,
that, we'll cover it as we go through the upcoming, agenda.
for Thursday night.
Yeah.
All right, well, may I point out to staff that there is a complete website from the National Institute of Diabetes, Digestive and Kidney Research that gives some background, and it states the problem, how big the problem is. And this month, this year, it's being dedicated to children with diabetes. We probably all have family members that have had diabetes, suffered from it, had repercussions because of it. And my grandson is type 1 diabetic, and he's 11 years old. It creates huge problems and challenges for families. So hopefully that we can use our meeting to emphasize to the public the importance of helping children and adults, for that matter, with diabetes, properly care for themselves and protect themselves medically, and with their medical providers and their family members. There's 192,000 youth under the age of 20 that have diabetes. And it's not an easy thing to take care of. There are emergency situations every day where the child needs emergency assistance, and those around them, whether it's school teachers or paramedics or individuals on the street, can save that child's life. So,
Do you want this in a proclamation?
Yeah, we can do that, since we're already into the agenda, it'll be item 8.
and at that website, there's downloadable posters and comments if you wanted to use that to insert into your proclamation, the key points that they make. And
Can you email me that website tomorrow?
I can do that, yes, ma'am.
Oh, we don't even have an 8 on there, do we? That worked out perfect.
I wasn't gonna point that out, I just wanna make sure we put that on item 8.
Okay.
That's why it wasn't on there.
That's right, I
We
was
were gonna
anticipating that.
Put Paul's recommendation on there. That's all right.
Thank you. So getting into the consent agenda, we have on item number 4, I don't know, Mr. Shealy wants to talk at all about the budget amendments real quick.
Well, it's just kind of housekeeping items. You know, we budget the general fund and water and sewer fund annually. These two that are affected are capital project funds, which are set up, and then they pretty much stay the same until they need to be adjusted. We did budget money from the general fund this year into the ESC Park Fund for the ball fields and parking and so forth. So we need to adjust its budget to reflect that. The other one on the street fund, that project fund was set up a couple of years ago on an estimated basis, and we just need to make it more in line with our actual project. It's really just a little cleanup work.
And then on item number 5, we have an ordinance that was also included in your packet to help improve traffic flows during drop-off and pickup hours near Troutman Middle School. So that is in consent agenda. Moving on to recognitions. Former police chief Matthew, and I cannot pronounce his last name for the life of me. Selves. That one's broken in my head, sorry. Will be here to present a recognition of a safety audit that he completed with the Troutman Police Department. apparently it came out very well, and so he can probably talk about that for a few minutes, but most importantly, present the recognition. And then the second recognition is in honor of longtime community resident Vernon Red Overcash. I believe we have the actual hardware for that. Standing reports, we have item number 8 now. Item number 9 is the ABC store with Mr. Getzinger making his regular appointment. And then the regular update from the library from Branch Manager Goodwin. Going down to new business, we have a resolution that comes up to recognize a plan every 5 or so years for the 2020. This year's version is the 2020 Iredell Row and Hazard Mitigation Plan for the town of Troutman. And again, that comes up about every 5 years. We'll have Kent Green, who's the Director of Emergency Management, here to attend and present on that issue. A couple times I emailed you the link for that. I don't know if you guys were able to track that down. If you need a hard copy version of it, I have it, but it's about 700 pages. I think the first third of it is probably the more valuable part. If you can get through that, I think you've got it. But let me know if you need a hard copy. Item number 12, we have the zoning request from the Morrows that Commissioner or Councilperson Harris had spoke about earlier, and Interim Planning Director Wells had been working on. That is item number 12. I don't know if there are any new updates or just, I think that pretty much is as will be presented.
No, not other than the Planning and Zoning Committee unanimously recommended in favor of every zoning.
You had to note that we had to change the number on it though. Back in the other stuff I was doing today, the 160A versus the 160D, you were looking at, do we have to change that?
Oh, you noticed that, huh? That's because the 160D is now in
So you
effect,
change
yeah.
the number, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
I didn't think anybody would notice that.
I saw your wording on it. I mean, I may not noticed it, if you hadn't brought it up, but yeah, I've noticed your comments on it, yeah.
I have a quick question. In doing the packets, when all of them were done and the council's was gone to be delivered, I noticed that I had 2 extra maps. So is anybody missing one of these?
Open the map.
I got one.
I did not get one of them.
You did not get
No,
one?
ma'am.
I don't think I got one.
I'm sorry.
So
It's
there-
with the
Mars
rezone.
property.
Oh, yeah. I've
The
got it.
Murray property?
Yeah.
I've got it, yeah.
Yeah, you got one.
Yeah, I know what that is.
Okay, good.
I've
Everybody-
got it, yeah, I've got it.
I
Okay,
got several maps. Got them the folded.
Yes, the folded
the
one.
folder.
Right, yeah.
Let me see. I
Yeah, you
did,
got one.
I did.
Okay.
I looked at the one with the highlight on it.
May I ask a quick question on,
Yes, sir.
going to take you back for just a second to the hazard mitigation plan that had a number of addendums, attachments in the very back of those 700 and some odd pages, and I could not find any of those attachments. Would they have perhaps come through as a different PDF?
Did you get there by following or hitting that link?
I opened the document and
Okay.
went through all 700 pages quickly.
Okay. I can go back and check tonight and
But
see.
it calls out,
Yeah.
those different addendums, but I did not find them at the end of the document.
You didn't find the actual hard
The hard
addendums.
copy, there was one I wanted to look at specifically and was unable to find it anywhere.
All right, I'll check and let you know.
Mayor, I don't know, I've got to say this. I hope Judy Velocity is no longer on this council. I think she is. In male form.
I take that as a compliment.
Yeah, it is a compliment. It is a compliment.
And then finally, we have the appointments to the town boards. The one for Board of Adjustment, one for Design Review Board, and it's my understanding that they will be present at the meeting.
Unless
I have a
there's
question that
unforeseen
your,
circumstances.
in your documentation, specifically the existing members that you included in our packet, you listed as part of BOA Jan Huffman, and of course she's resigned.
It should have been marked out, was it not marked out?
No, she's in there.
Huh?
You didn't have it marked out, but I don't know my copy either.
There as a
Yeah, she was
member.
there, right,
Yes.
correct, yeah, but she was not, she said something about marked out, but
It's
she was not marked
not
out
been,
on mine.
Oh, okay, so,
she just is vacant, period.
yeah, so that, I know it's marked out now, so this may went out last month, and then
Yeah.
she turned in her thing after?
Afterwards.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's why, because I just
I
brought
just-
this in from last month,
Yeah.
sorry. But she is marked out on my documents on my computer.
And then we have a closed session on economic development. So we'll want to get through that, and then we'll be able, I think, after some discussion on that, be able to probably discuss some next steps. There's a time is of the essence issue with regard to that as well. So
I'm sorry, what?
on the economic development closed session.
Oh, okay.
So we'll need to discuss that, and there's, like I said, time is of the essence, as our town attorney would say, so we'll take a look at that and then get some feedback for you on what direction we want to go with it after that, so.
Are you finished with the second? Are you finished right now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, the reason, I apologize, I wanted to ask, Jonathan, what is the situation with Smith Village? I understand there was some recordation problems with the state of North Carolina holding that up. Has that all been worked out?
Which is this now?
You had sent out, or some comment had been made to me, that there was some recordation problems with the filing, of what we had passed with Smith Village with the state of North Carolina.
Oh, yeah, thank you for bringing that up. We had received, and Kim may be better able to explain this, but I'll do my best. We had been filing for as long as I think anybody can remember in the same fashion. We had gotten a form letter back maybe a month ago saying that the map that we had submitted, which was really materially no different than the maps that had been submitted in the past, and I did this when I was with the city of Charlotte for probably 17 or 18 years. So I think between the two of us, we had a good long history. Anyway, they're being a little bit more they're being a lot more particular with regard to how this is to be filed, specifically the map and the legibility of the map. What we've done is we've requested and obtained from the petitioner, the Smith Village a developer, a revised map, and it's a larger scale Mylar map that we copied and we sent down to the state for recordation. We have also modified our own internal processes and procedures for petitioning the board for voluntary annexation to upfront require that kind of information and those kinds of maps to be submitted on day one, so we don't have to go back at the tail end and ask for it after the fact. So after having conversations not only with the state but with the county on recording requirements, we've gotten that glitch worked out. But I think I can sit here and tell you that there's nothing that was done wrong by anybody on staff. It was a state requirement that was changed, and quite frankly, they did not convey it very well to the localities. But now we're on notice, and we're ahead of the curve now.
So Smith Village is taken care of then?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I
Well-
understand the future, but they have been taken
Yeah.
care of.
Haven't heard back from the state yet, but
Yeah.
the copy of the Mylar, recorded Mylar has been sent.
Yeah.
That's been said, okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, that caused a little anxiety here a few weeks ago, but we-
I heard it cause anxiety.
All right.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Back to the agenda. I see Ms. Williams came in. We were, should be adding, an addition to that closed session, for personnel matter.
There's a closed session pursuant to the North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A6 for, to discuss personnel matter.
Okay. All right. Is that it on the agenda for Thursday?
Yes, sir.
Bring this to the last item.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? It's here to my left.
Okay, who seconded that?
I say.
He gave you an opportunity.
I did. All those in favor say aye.